Okay, we're live.
Good morning. There we go. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special meeting of Mahone Bay Town Council. And we have some of the principals from area here with us this morning to discuss some of the open agendas, all of the open topics on our agenda. We'd also like to welcome the people at home who are watching us on YouTube. It's always beneficial to council to have the involvement of people at home, the citizens in the town. So with that, we will begin by acknowledging that we are gathered this morning in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This morning, we gather with the intent followed by the living peace and friendship treaties, and we do so with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. We'll call the meeting to order. You have an agenda that was emailed to you. What is your wish on the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as circulated.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Lomas Croft. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. I would note that we have two members of council that are have been unavoidably called away from this session this morning. So we still have a quorum.
Three.
Three? Sure. Oh, yes, and the deputy mayors, they go to the country. So we have three missing. So we're running by the skin of our teeth. Anyway, we've got an agenda, so let's go to the first item on that agenda, and that is an update on the solar garden project. Aaron Long. Aaron, would you mind introduce your team that's with you this morning?
Thank you for the audience, Mr. Mayor. That is in fact, I think, a great start to the meeting here. I'm joined by Marianne Perrier and Meg Hodges. Marianne will give an introduction. I think some of you have had the pleasure of meeting both area staff here at our board meeting and at the workshop that we had in Berwick a couple of weeks ago. But a pleasure for us to leave our phones and our email inbox behind and come down and talk to people face to face. So thank you and your council for providing the opportunity for us to come down here today. I'll ask Marianne to provide an introduction and then Meg as well.
Okay, I'm Marianne Perrier, Project Development Manager for area. I've been on the project since I was made when I joined area. So I am managing the projects Mahone Bay, Berwick, and Antigonish. And a lot of people are probably wondering where we are at with the solar garden up the hill. Pleased to know that the garden is constructed. We are in the phase now where we've had our owner's engineer, who is an independent contractor than Golbeck, who has built this, and we are at the point where they're just doing their due diligence. They are just double checking on behalf of area and Mahone Bay to make sure that the construction is up to standard. So we're in the process of review, just going through that. And what will happen is after they've done the review, which should be completed shortly, Golbeck will be working on a deficiency list, and a punch list, and then we'll be able to go live and produce energy for the town. And that should happen in the next couple of weeks. So, and we're looking forward to it being completed for the grand opening on December 11th. So is there any questions anybody may have, or Aaron, did I miss any information?
We can further talk about the solar garden on that agenda item. We can continue in that vein right now, or at your discretion, we can introduce Meg.
Let's continue with the solar garden.
Okay, all right. So we have circulated an update document that highlights pretty much what Marianne just mentioned. So if there are any members of council that had questions, area staff would be happy to field them.
First
Council Wilson.
question number one, how are we doing financially? Where's this thing gonna end up capital-wise?
So we had provided a financial update last time on that. There's no
Yeah.
change. No change to that.
Basically on budget.
Yeah, subject to the interest charges that keep accruing.
Well, as an old accountant friend of mine said, barring and pond rules. So the question then becomes, what do we know now, given if we know the capital costs, do we know now what the power purchase deal is gonna be?
There's two parts. There's actually three parts. Let's go back to that. There's in the power purchase agreement, there's your repayment of the construction cost, and then there's ongoing operations cost. We're soon to post an RFP for industry to respond to how to help these towns and area collectively keep these assets healthy over their lifetime. We have assumptions in there. We don't recommend setting a power purchase agreement on that assumption officially for the lifetime of the asset. The RFP will close on December 22nd, and then we will commence a period of negotiations with industry on how to deliver the value and the services that we need at least cost. After that time, I think we'll be in a position to set those power purchase agreements. Our recommendation, I believe, as accepted by council, was that it's set at the utilities marginal cost or avoided cost until that time. So to answer your question, I don't believe we're at a stage right now to fix the long-term power purchase agreement price in that. I expect in the first 3 months of 2024 to be in that position, to bring a recommendation to this council and the others.
Okay, let me ask the question a different way. When we started this process, I think the estimated PPA was $85. Where are we relative to that number in your best estimate? Your best estimate.
We haven't run that for Mahone Bay. The long-term debt costs on that will be the determinant, the major determinant, because we assumed them at 2% and they're probably now 4.5 or 5%. So we haven't run those numbers, but with confidence they will be less than your avoided cost that the market would offer had you not done the project.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
The avoided cost being, that's the rate that NSPI, given that we're buying from them right now. That would be the number we're talking about.
Yes.
But we've never been able to give you a satisfactory answer.
Oh, what is the number?
Yeah, so that's posted in Nova Scotia Power's rate tariffs schedule for 2024 will be $101.33. There is the bar tab that we've mentioned. John Reagan did some quick calculations. That should be another $20 a megawatt hour on top of that from Nova Scotia Power's your avoided cost,
Which comes back later on us.
Yeah.
At some point. So it's $101 good, because if I recall, your worship, looking at those invoices that I got from I forget the months, but let's say July and August, or August, September, the line item that said cost for energy, which I assume is just the per kilowatt hour price, was $93.
That's correct. Just for 2023.
Correct. Okay, so when you say 101, that's for 2024.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Subject to any adjustments that Nova Scotia Power puts in front of the regulator, which are approved to true up what we call the bar tab.
Yeah.
But which more officially is known as the fuel adjustment mechanism. There's a forward-looking component to that and a backward-looking component to that.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they add anything inside calendar year 2024 to that, but there's a possibility that they do.
Okay. Did you wish to discuss the other issues around the solar garden project, like the land preparation, the landscaping, what we've done to deal with issues like water runoff?
So there are features on that site, as we've mentioned in here. There's swales and ditches. They've been upgraded since the major storm at the end of July. Those, to our belief, are working the way they should be. There are ongoing consultations I think those are in the closed session conversations about the additional aspects to that, so we
Okay,
could defer to that time.
and I see we've built some structures over the inverters to protect them from the weather.
Yeah, we've included that in our update. That's standard. That was in Berwick and in Antigonish.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Carver? Looking quizzical as usual.
Just thinking.
Councillor Longstreth?
Yeah, I'm just a little curious. Does this include the storm report that we received today? And,
The storm report being closed session.
oh, that's a separate, okay. So, has that mitigated any of the problems, the work that's been done?
Well, I think it's an ongoing process there. I do think that is a closed session topic.
Hmm,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Going once, going twice?
Just a concluding remark, if council has finished its questions on that.
They have?
Yep, it's been a journey. I think every time that we speak about the project, we do need to remember that it's been an extremely challenging market and construction period of time where you've had commodity markets go sideways because of the conflict. Now we have two conflicts going on globally. We came out of COVID. There has been a lot of commentary from our colleagues with the government about other municipal projects that received funding like this, where schedules had to be delayed and significant cost overruns. So I think we've done well here to get to where we are. Looking forward to bringing it to the finish line. As Marianne mentioned, we are close. We have high satisfaction with our owner's engineer being thorough and detailed. Quite impressed with that firm, Zahn Engineering out of Ontario. Matches our municipal profile, matches our organization's values, and that's not always guaranteed when you have a service provider. And we've been quite fortunate to capture that company's time. All the contractors are overloaded and very busy, and our towns will forever realize the benefit of that firm's engagement.
Councillor Wilson, Councillor Carver.
Just a quick follow-up on the financial piece. I'm just wondering, when we talk about getting updates on the capital and long-term capital and our purchase agreement, who does that physically? Is that the Antigonish people?
What's the final construction cost of the project, you mean?
Well, I'm just wrapping up the capital, getting that all in a nice tidy package, and so we know exactly where we're at financially.
It's Area's responsibility to make sure that the numbers are accurate. We have our own tracking system. Antigonish has its accounting system. Your town has its accounting system. All three of those need to match before we go and place the debt on that. So we haven't been able to access Antigonish to do a partial reconciliation where we are in the project. We had a reconciliation conversation with Berwick, a preliminary one. Area and Mahone Bay are looking to schedule time to have that here. So there's a couple of reconciliations that we have to do there. They all have to match, but it's Area's obligation to ensure that they do.
But in fact, it involves our accounting staff, Antigonish accounting staff, and you personally, I assume,
Yep, me and Marianne.
too.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing I'm quite happy with is Marianne's work in tracking budgets, having systems in place to ensure that things have been paid, how when they go into a system where they are in approval. It's been quite advantageous, and that's why you see that the last couple of months have had reporting updates and budget updates. So it's just about finding time with Antigonish and other finance departments. We'll bring this home.
Okay, it will be a subject for a later date, so Antigonish business, but thank you.
Councillor Carver. Councilor Fox.
Thank you. Is this going back to a general question? What can you tell us about how plans are shaping up for the open house?
Can I introduce Meg?
Yeah.
How about we introduce Meg, and then Meg, if you can answer that, and I can fill in as many gaps, or would you like me to?
Yeah, no, I can do that.
Okay, so we can start with your introduction.
So I'm Meg Hodges and I'm the operations officer for area. It's nice to see you again. I don't know if any of you have ever watched How I Met Your Mother, but there's like a recurring scene where they bring someone and they're like, "Have you met Meg?" And that's just the feeling that I've had. So I've been working with Dylan and Lauren to get the open house up and running. We have social media posts that will go out this week, and we have a full calendar to inform everyone that the event is coming on December 11th. It'll be from 5 to 8 p.m. We will also have big display boards that were done at previous open houses. We'll reuse some of the old ones that don't refer to certain topics, and then we will have new ones in place with beautiful pictures, and we'll have a question and answer corner, and we'll guide people through the room and have a whole room panel for people to discuss their comments and concerns or any questions that they have about the site. And it's going to be festive. We'll have some hot chocolate and some cookies. I hear that the decorations for the hall are quite festive at that time of year. So those are the main plans so far, but we've got those things on a roll, and I'm looking forward to meeting your community.
Thanks, Meg. Can you say more about the question and answer corner?
Sure. So we're going to have it kind of like a guided open house. So there will be kind of FAQs along the way. And if anyone feels like the questions that they have aren't answered in any of those information boards, then we will have the corner available for them to write down their question or have their comments recorded, and then we will have answers for them there. Or if we can't provide answers in that moment, we'll have their contact information and get back to them.
So will that be one-on-one Q&A? How will that actually work?
Yep, like a one-on-one Q&A. So if people wanted to come in a group together and chat about those things, that would be great. But because of the nature of it being a 3-hour session and to capture any questions and answers that everyone would maybe want to see, it just seems like the best way to do that is in one kind of contained area, so that if someone comes later in a session and they weren't there for the initial ask, then they can see the question on the board and hopefully have that answered for them as well. So it's just a way of making sure that anyone who comes, regardless of their time, can have their question answered and feel heard or have a response.
Thanks. I had imagined that it would be a plenary session, but you're saying that it would be hard to organize that to accommodate everybody's time. It could be possible that if it were announced that a Q&A, a plenary session, were available from 6 to 7, people might target their time, their arrival time.
And even if that were the case, some people might show up later and not get the full benefit of the discussion or hear the question. And so we felt that this was the best way to make sure that everyone who came would be able to see all of the questions and hopefully have the answers. And if they felt like the answer wasn't available to them, then we could take their name and number and their email address and then reach out to them again afterwards.
Could we even provide the questions and the answers online afterwards?
Yes.
So that everybody, the whole community can see the answers.
Yeah, we could make an FAQ kind of document and have that
I think
available.
I think it's important that the full community see the questions and the answers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just jump in with 2 extra things, and thank you, Meg. That was great. We're also going to try to collect questions in advance. So if anybody's watching this, obviously we want to know your questions, because that means we'll be able to have great prepared answers for those questions. And we'll try to work into the communications leading up. Like, if you have questions for us, tell us now. Don't wait to come out to session. And then just to say, to Meg's point about, we can make the answers available after, to the extent that we can, we'll also make the answers available in writing at the session as we go. But obviously, in some cases, if there's we have to look into it and get back to you, then we'll do it directly to that person, and then also via some type of FAQ.
Thanks.
to whom would citizens send their communications?
Well, that will be something that will be put out in the communications, but I think it's gonna be climate at Lauren's usual address. That's what we usually use. I hope that's not, we also have an address at area for
That's
questions,
great.
so we're supposed to meet after this to work out that sort of tiny detail. Do we direct the questions to Meg or Lauren? But yeah, I think climate at townofmahombay.ca we try to get people to remember that one.
Hmm.
So it's probably the best place to, and that will be included in any promotion with at this reason.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Councilor Owens Crawford, you have a-
No, I was just wondering, going back to the finances, do you have any financial statements from any of the councils? Like about there's where they are in the solar?
Yeah, they,
But we-
they print out a work in progress, and that's what we went through with Berwick. And we have things there that area has rebuilt. They have an account of that, and then the other invoices that they have that haven't gone through the area system. So we need to get those into the claims process.
Do they seem online with what area has?
When we looked at it, it has to match. So like in order for our vendors to get paid, it has to go through the accounting system in Antigonish, and then immediately those create chargebacks to the town. So those line up. The things that towns have been doing with regards to site or land acquisition or easements, we have a placeholder in our budget. We are conservative in that. To date, the information that we've got back is confirmed that those estimates are in line. But the final reconciliation here is not like $1 million in the difference. It's some of these small items, like someone did $1,000 welding job where they paid a surveyor for $1,000. The town did that instead of area did that. I'm not expecting a big difference here.
Just. as a-
Councilor Wilson.
Thank you. As a housekeeping item, I know the last time we talked, we talked about where the billing was with regard to billing back to the province and the feds. And it was, I think, some of it at least was stuck in Antigonish somewhere in the tray. Has that been straightened out so that we have, because as you probably know, we're incurring massive amounts of interest charges right now.
Fully aware of that. We came together as a group and had a conversation, I believe, shortly after this council expressed its concern to me. The conclusion out of that was there's delays created in processing the claims. There's delays by the levels of government of paying that. I do not believe that we have addressed the concern that you just again identified.
That we have not,
Correct.
that's not great.
You've got a board meeting scheduled for the 8th of December.
I think we're looking to move that into the week following. I think
Okay.
Lise is in the process of getting in touch with people about it.
Do we anticipate having financial statements?
I have
up to
sought
that
answers
point,
to
or-
that question and they remain unanswered,
So this is for the year end last year.
correct?
You talking about the 15th, I think?
It was either the 13th or the 15th.
Nothing because Christmas like a board meeting.
Well, we have a calendar hold for the morning of the 15th normally, so I guess just keep that in your calendar so we hear.
Yeah. So those are scheduled by staff in Antigonish. They were checking on venue, which ones were available, and then the next step was to come out to the board and ask for which times folks were available. But I would like to reschedule it from you.
Will we be back in Eller's house, do you think?
It all depends on if lunch is available. Then
Absolutely does.
that's when we go to Eller's house. Otherwise, it's either going to be at the Many Hats, the area office that we have as that side room in the studio there, or we'll have it in the community Eller's house. I think the more time that our board and our organization spends in Eller's house, our long-term interests are best served by doing that. So that's always our preference and our intent. But it'll be one of those two locations.
I'm sure financial statements will have everybody there with bells on, no matter when you call the meeting.
I think it's the pie, actually.
Well, there's that too.
In an ideal world, we have both.
Okay, any other questions? No? Back to you, sir.
So I appreciate the opportunity there to speak about the solar garden. These projects never quit, so with your permission in advance of Mary Ann's 11:30 meeting, if she could excuse herself at that time. Is there a break that you had scheduled in mind, which would be convenient so that when she moves over there, she doesn't disturb the council session, or we'll just run and she can leave when her meetings come?
So we have one more open session item here, the municipal innovation program update, and then we'll go into closed session. So it would be convenient to leave at the break or really anytime once we're in closed session. It's
That's fine. Okay, thank you very much for that. Before we move into Meg's things, I want to express my appreciation for Mary Ann joining our organization. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with Mary Ann. We are extremely fortunate in these times of a labor market crisis. And in particular, I'm reminded about this because our insurance broker, Aon, sends us reports on what industry is replying to with regards to the top risks to their enterprise, and human resources at the top of the list. Human resources are the most important assets of our organization, which executes a mandate on behalf of your town, your council, and your citizens. So I wanted to recognize Mary Ann's commitment to our organization and our projects. Thank you, Mary Ann. So with your direction, we're able to move into and ready to move into Meg's presentation for the open session about the municipal electric utility collaboration themes.
Yeah.
Great.
Do we have a presentation that's up?
There was a presentation that was sent, I'm not sure if that was on the computer.
We could put it on what's on the calendar. It's what we received, is it the modernization project?
We need a color code on the table.
yeah, they all do it later, but I get to look at them.
Down screen.
Because we swapped the HDMI cord out for the other one. We
Well, they did.
had a labeled cord and we gave it to them.
I don't think they supplied one. Yeah.
You know, we lost the one up at the fire department and had to take one up there at one point.
Yeah.
They're like the catalytic converters in the carpool parking.
You want? Just the remote.
Yeah, but no, I think HDMI is becoming pretty ubiquitous. They used to be sort of $100 for an HDMI cable, gold plated.
I was just gonna say, you gotta have the gold plated
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were going shopping with my father and he'd be like, well, this guy says you need it. Do you really?
Yeah, now you do. Right? Like they finally are necessary now. Most devices really rely on them. But at first, you know,
For a cable for Apple, every time a new device comes,
Oh, yes.
they change the
they love their
connection.
proprietary cables that you're gonna buy.
I sense some.
Okay.
Okay, we're up and running. Thank you. So I'm here to update about the MU modernization project. So just as a reminder, the goal is to develop and enter into an intermunicipal service agreement or a suite of contractual agreements to modernize and amalgamate the operations of the municipal electric utilities owned by the town of Mahone Bay, Berwick, and the Riverport Electric Light Commission. So as a timeline, oh, sure,
Do you want questions now?
that's a
At
great,
the end.
I could go either way.
So my question is, why these three as opposed to the original three?
Those are the original three.
Mahone
Yeah,
Bay, Berwick, and.
Oh, and then finish. These were the ones who agreed to partner together for the Municipal Innovation Program funding through the Province of Nova Scotia Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So and that was in June, and that application went in, and we received the funding in July. So after we finish this project, I'm sure Antigonish would be interested in maybe knowing more about it. They're just very busy with their grid modernization project right now, and they're moving along with that. So
Okay,
once
thanks.
that's out of the way, they'll be.
If I could jump in, there's 5 actually in the province. So creating this trifecta sets the stage for adding any additional ones.
I see, so town of Lunenburg being the fifth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Antigonish has a very big grid modernization project, a $20 million one in front of the regulator. Area has a history of a couple of units. I think in the early days of area, it was Mahone Bay and Berwick that took the leadership position on that. And so all of the municipal electric utilities are welcome to join in the initiatives at the right stage. And when they do, we are always stronger together, the greater our numbers. So when folks align and want to move things forward on their timelines, we keep all of them abreast. And it was these three that saw an immediate opportunity for the benefit of their operations. And that's why you see them in initiatives like PEI and the Confederation, the observer status, and we all get to the end together. That's where I'm confident.
But thank you for mentioning that there are 5. And that in fact, in many ways, it seems like this might be of interest to them.
So this is a follow-up to presentation update that I gave to you way back in October. This one, I think. So just like a general timeline of where we've been since the spring and where we're hoping to be for next spring. Aaron presented to you all about the need for a shared utility director and just a different operational structure for the electric utilities before I was hired. And in that project, I have been hired and I joined area in May, and we applied for the MIP funding, which was successfully received and provided to us in July. So in the summer, we drafted and released an RFP for a recruitment firm out of Halifax, and KBRS was selected, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. We've been working on developing an MOU, and we hosted a MEU Atlantic Recharge Retreat in St. John's in July, where we met with the other electric utilities from St. John or from New Brunswick and from PEI. And so there's a lot of excitement out in the Atlantic provinces to work together on more collaborative projects as well, which is really exciting. But and that was part of the MIP funding application to kind of broaden our network and connect with these other utilities as well to see how we could share services and procurement over time. And so those relationships are being built, and it's very exciting. This fall, we have begun the process of drafting the advertisements for hiring the shared utility director. We are currently working to negotiate a contract between the area and Riverport about the utility service agreement. And we're hoping that we will be able to sign an MOU sometime in the next few months. This winter, we'd like to hire the utility director, develop the IMSA, and finalize the process mapping. That will include dispatching the low-hanging fruit like utility meter reading and whatever other little fun bits we find that could be easily addressed across all of these organizations and efficiently sorted. And then spring 2024, we hope to sign the IMSA and develop the operational efficiencies that are identified in the mini process mapping. So that work is yet to happen, but it is coming along. So for the utility director, our main top priorities are succession planning for Don Reagan, the superintendent in Berwick. He is increasingly looking to be out of the role and enjoy his time at home and be with his dogs and enjoy all of the great things that the North Mountain has to offer in the Annapolis Valley. And given the limited size of each of the budgets for each of these utilities to attract a qualified individual to this role, we think it's best to pool the resources and hire someone who can work across all of them. There will be significant annual savings to that.
Sure. So just to clarify, Don Reagan has been the lead on the Berwick Electric Commission, is that correct? And area has benefited from his services, kind of ad hoc, informally, is that?
Yeah, there was, in particular, as we navigated the journey through the general rate applications on behalf of 3 towns, more so in Riverport than here, but just a general guiding hand, given that he's been at this for 4 decades. One of the original architects of area, his passion for the existence of these entities inside municipal ownership we have to capture that. So that's why we started. That was the real initiation for this last year. Like I said, we've all kind of, hey, we should plan for succession in the realm of expertise of keeping the operations healthy. And that motivated this whole project. The sooner we get that in, the more of Don's expertise and knowledge and just time in the game, will be better served for that. We had hoped to achieve that with a longtime consultant with Albert Dominy, and a transition to staff and other consultants, and didn't achieve our total objectives on that transition, and it cost us dearly. I want to make sure we don't replicate that experience when we have an opportunity here to avoid that.
So at a very basic level, we're gonna be shifting, ideas to shift from a service that we haven't been paying for to a service that area will be paying for.
Well, except, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
except that Don Reagan has only really focused on Berwick issues and some area issues. He has nothing to do with our issues or Riverport.
I think
This
that-
new person will be basically,
Yeah,
I
right.
think, doing all four.
All three.
Well, 3 plus area, I mean, helping you to sort out some problems you may have, plus Berwick, plus us, plus Riverport.
I think just a couple of points there. Don put significant time into Riverport when their previous manager was here. A lot of support was done on Riverport. Doesn't change the answer to your question. The utility director is dedicated to the municipal electric utilities. I don't think there's anything that person needs to do to help resolve anything in that area.
Okay.
That is the theme that these electric utilities are enterprises that require a dedicated manager to it. I'm sure there's a better, more euphemistic term, but one throat to choke. And single focus on that is I think there's a number of opportunities that the utilities are missing. In particular, planning for the future, like the electric load on these circuits will triple as people are pushed by policymakers to move into electric vehicles and electric transportation, electric space heating, sorry. And that's why there's that management function is required in all three of those electric utilities.
This may be a little bit of a rabbit hole, but tell me if it is. Because we've often wondered whether having an electric utility commission would serve the town well, and I don't know how that might work with this new proposed position.
I don't think it changes the need for management. All of the process mapping that Meg mentioned there, all of those functions would remain necessary and remain optimized inside of areas suite of recommendations, whether the town continues to own it or whether the setup is like Berwick, where you have a commission that's somewhat separate than the town. I have no recommendations, or area has no recommendations to this town at present, whether you should move into a commission or not. I think our singular focus should be on implementing the plan as Megan will present here. And if after that, there's nothing that binds you or restricts you from that pursuit, if the town so decides afterwards.
Thanks.
And I mean, we should add the plan as Meg is presenting it is to arrive at recommendations up to and including that. So it is within the scope of this project to give us some recommendations about that way forward.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. By June of next year.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
hope, that's my plan, that's my timeline. So the utility director role will cover the operational requirements of each of the MEUs, and we will create documentation and form steady state functions so that there is better long-term planning, there is better asset management, it's not to say that it isn't going well now, but just that it could be done more holistically with the group and being able to strategically forecast out 5 years or more on regulatory issues or investment issues will be a lot easier as a shared group, and it will be the goal of the director to keep those things in mind. So the sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So who will that role be reporting to? Will it be reporting to area, or will it be internally, or will it be reporting to the board?
So currently working on the governance structure of how this person will report into the MEUs at this moment with KBRS, who is the recruitment firm that we're working with. They also have a governance team that is really, this is something that's quite new. And so we want to make sure that the governance structure is strong so that it doesn't fall in on itself. And we have clear reporting structures in place so that this person feels supported and knows where to go, who to report to, who to talk to. At this moment, the hope is to have monthly reports back to the CAOs of each organization and the chair of the report. But this is all very preliminary. That could shift with the guidance of the governance folks over at KBRS. But that is top of mind right now as we're developing this. So we're currently drafting the job description, and that should be released soon out to the market. And with it will come an executive brief that describes each of these electric utilities and the communities that they're a part of, and also what the role would be to basically be a builder. This is something that's very new, and so we have to attract a very specific, very dedicated, and very excited kind of person who is interested in building something from the ground up. And we are really hopeful. KBRS has been very helpful in identifying that this person may not already live in Nova Scotia. And so we're including parts of what is it like to live in Nova Scotia in the executive brief to kind of keep everyone abreast of the idea of what life in rural Nova Scotia is like. So that's the main part about KBRS and the process that we're in right now. Are there any questions about?
Yeah. The obvious question, I think, is this person is also going to be very expensive. So do we have any notion of how much and what the cost sharing arrangements might be?
I feel like that is a conversation for a closed session. But I think that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. But I'd be happy to answer that.
Who's looking after the financial oversight of this process that you're going through right now? Who's doing the accounting and the financials? Like, you have grant money now. So who's doing that work? Annick and Ish?
Yeah.
Is that going to be a problem? Because we don't have financials from our last project. And I have a real concern of going further into an area that we have not seen success. And this is a new project for us, and I don't know if this is the time for us to be getting into something totally new like this when we haven't fixed the problems we've had before.
So I can speak to that. The way that this grant works is we get 50% of the money up front. Area incurs these costs and then rebills them back to the towns. If there's any delays with any of that, then it's later that you pay for these types of things. To date, I don't think any of these towns have received any chargebacks from area regarding the project. This wraps into a conversation topic I think we're having in closed session. I hear you that there is concern. I have the same concerns, but Mahone Bay, Berwick, and Riverport do not have the luxury of waiting to hire a shared utility director until a concern on accounting systems or financial services provided by another town resolved. So we have a time period now to capture the 40 years of experience with Don Reagan. Each town's financial contribution to this initiative, I think, is $40,000 or $50,000. That's not gonna double because of any performance issues with any of our municipal partners, financial services.
Eric, Teresa, I think that's the key point, is that this is a project we've got a fixed commitment to, and our financial commitment to the project, that's not gonna change. Right, between now and June, like that's. This is a project that is not open-ended. We've made a commitment to a certain amount of money, and that's what the town is gonna pay.
Correct.
I don't know, Sue, maybe that would give you some reassurance that this is not a case where the cost could climb between now and June, like this is a defined project.
You're not drawing on a line of credit. There's no subsequent claims process to the government, which would increase the interest charges you pay here. This is a start and an end. They have provided $274,000. I think it was 75% of the funding for eligible costs on that.
Well, the interest may not change, but the accumulated money that we have invested will increase because the salaries are gonna cost and work as you get into it. We have money owing to us already from the utilities, so I'm just really concerned. Is there a timeline we can put on Antigonish to have these financials to us? I mean, I thought we were going to get answers when we met after that October meeting. You were going into a meeting and we were told you'd find out what was going on. We'd get a report back. We did not get a report back. So now you're asking us to trust, and I think that trust is, at least with me, wavering, because I'm not seeing the results of things we've asked for about the financials. This is the people of Mahone Bay's money and Berwick and Antigonish. These taxpayers have invested. It's not our money as a group sitting around here. We are entrusted to have oversight and to be stewards of this money. And I don't think we're doing the job we've been asked to do.
May I respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so
Although I would just caution that we are scheduled to go in camera. And we had perhaps some of these issues would be better discussed in that.
Well, I'm fine with that, but I would like to see something happen today, a commitment with some kind of, we need to see these financial statements. We need to know where we're going financially with these projects. We owe it to the people we serve.
So my response is short and brief, and I would like to reiterate that there is no risk to this town or its citizens regarding budget overages on this project for the issues that you've raised, which are valid, but none of those bleed into this initiative.
Councillor Wilson.
Slightly different topic, but I heard you say somewhere about getting the information from Don Reagan and sort of a skills transfer. And I was lying awake this morning at 4 o'clock wondering what that might look like. Are you gonna sit down in front of a microphone and TV camera and make a YouTube video? Or how are you gonna extract all that information from 40 years worth of work and download it into this new entity?
So I have been meeting with Dawn and recording our
I really-
conversations. And I listen to them later, and they're my Don Reagan podcast. And they're great. He also gives me lots of reading material that's really interesting. And so he is keen to get this off his chest. Like, I think it keeps him up at 4 a.m. worrying about these things as well. And he's no stranger to being recorded at this point. So I think it's really important to have that and have, you can just like, as this really cool historical record of someone who's been a really big part of something so like amazing and exciting as something as small as these electric utilities. They're really cool and they're really unique in the world, and Don is the expert on them. So to have that history, oral or written, is pretty cool. And those recordings will be available for the shared utility director, but they're also, I'll just ask him the same questions again if we have to, but he's been a very willing participant, and it's been a pleasure to be able to work with him like that. So
You're gonna be Ebony, then he's gonna be.
Is there a plan for Dawn to be involved in the selection process of the new utilities director? I mean, actively involved?
Yep, Don's been part of the process throughout. He's been providing input to KBRS about ideal candidates. And he will be part of the interviewing process as well, so. He's right here.
So come next June, we should have a shared utility director, competent, qualified, in place. And the cost to the town of Mahone Bay will not exceed what was quoted when the project began.
There's a hiring process. We have a budget for what it's gonna take to hire this. 1/3 of that cost is going to be less than what you would incur if you went and found your own manager for your electric utility. So there was savings there. And in addition to that, the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing has kindly provided a significant grant to help us along that way for a period of time. So there is no scenario where Mahone Bay acting on its own will derive greater value to its citizens than participating in this collaborative initiative.
Suzanne, owner's comp, does that satisfy?
Well, I just see like moving costs and things like that in the something, so I'll wait till the close session. Okay,
One part of my answer back, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Antigonish in the last number of months has been focused on its general rate application. And it was Area's recommendation to everybody that Riverport and Mahone Bay go first. And so as we talk about things that are not up to expectations, I urge this council to have an appreciation for the millions of dollars that Antigonish has incurred as extra expenses by not having its general application go in order. So they have been dealing with that. These have been very challenging times for all municipalities in Nova Scotia. The 5 that have their electric utilities and the 3 that own Area. And that I continue to urge folks to bring concerns as they have them, but come in with a collaborative mindset and a holistic understanding of the challenges that all the municipalities face. And in that vein, we will continue to achieve the success that we've been able to realize on the past decade and look forward to that in the next 2 or so.
Great.
Any other questions?
Did you get to the end of your presentation?
No, not yet. That's okay. There's some more. So I do have updates about the MEU process after this, but I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that our recommendation is that town council authorize the hiring of a utility director for this project. But I don't, this is not the meeting where that will be decided. I just wanted to put it back out there to remind folks that this will be the request.
And I guess we'll just say that in particular, knowing that we're down to 4 out of 7 council members.
Yeah.
And the other members will want to catch up and they can watch this and read all the materials. It's likely that our next regular meeting won't allow for as much time for questions and answers or have the full area team, but we will probably have requests for decision.
Yeah.
So take advantage of this opportunity.
This is kind of a governance question, and this is actually a Joe Feeney question. Okay, so I found my Joe Feeney question. There's a question in his mind, and it sometimes raises in my brain too. That why would this necessarily come first to council for approval rather than just going to the board?
Area board.
Yeah. Because I'll use an example. For example, we are participating in the Joint Services Board. And from the council's point of view, they might as well not exist. We never hear anything from the Joint Services Board about anything. They have their own budget, they do their own thing, we get a thing once a year, we approve it, and off they go. And this kind of thing, we would never hear about at the council level. Ever.
I think the distinction on this project is that the town is a direct participant in this program, not Area. So like the town's the one that agreed to participate with the problem. Your point still stands and Area still answers, but I just wanted to make a distinction that we would hear about this one because this is a project that the town is a direct participant in.
Okay, I got you.
But Aaron, to the larger point about how does the board and the towns interact, I think it's relatively similar to MJSB in a sense, but you speak to it.
Yeah, I think we've been rewarded for, on a case-by-case basis. Is it an area decision and the board makes, and then we march that out into the councils? There are some times when we go to the councils first. So when we were contemplating where the wholesale supply options were coming from, about 14 months ago, we went to the area board and said, here's what we recommend, and it was conditional upon the councils and municipal electric utilities. So it followed that process at that time. In this case, given that it will have a direct effect on how your electric utility is run, as a courtesy, we're coming in here, making sure there's support. And then we go back to our board and say, we should hire this manager because we have the commitments of the towns to pay for that manager.
Thank you. There's more to follow. Got it.
But the point still stands is that the two organizations or governance things are very similar in the way they're organized. Three municipal partners together have a joint entity. So the governance issues are very different the way they operate. So you may want to learn from that.
So what specific learnings do you have in mind?
I don't know if that's a conversation for now, but maybe later.
Thank you. I find that these comments very helpful. I expressed to you all the last time that we met that I was a municipal councillor in Kings County, and I've been on joint service boards such as Valley Waste and Kings Transit and the Annapolis Valley Library Board. So I often struggle with what is the correct path of reporting? What would I have expected as a municipal councillor? So those comments don't go unheard. We have been back and forth, especially Aaron having to deal with me going, but if I was a municipal councillor, this is how I would imagine that this gets done. So this is the way that I think I would have wanted it as a municipal councillor, because this person will be on the town's payroll, even if it's just by a third. When we hired a new general manager for Kings Transit, that didn't go in front of each of the owning partners because it was a staff person for that organization, where this is a shared staff person for each of your organizations. So that to me was the difference for why we needed to do it this way. But I appreciate the question. It's been
Well, and that clarifies something for me, because I wasn't aware that decision had been made. It wasn't at all clear to me that this would not be an area staff person.
well, this person will be within area, but they will be contributed to financially by each of these organizations. So area will hold them as the umbrella during the process that we develop the IMSA and the idea, like we still have to do a lot of discovery about what the actual organization will look like through this project.
Yeah, if the June recommendations point to the establishment of a new commission, for example, that entity would likely be the employer of the individual should they go forward on a permanent basis, right? So that's TBD, and areas holding it during the project.
Okay, fair enough.
Great. So as we work through some other projects right now with Riverport, we have kind of had our MOU process a little bit on ice, but that will be coming forward hopefully for your council meeting, where I also bring forward the recommendation about the utility director. But I just wanted to provide some updates on that through this presentation for you to look through about what the MOU would cover over the course of the project as we develop the IMSA, including the reporting structure and the process mapping, timing for UARB studies and time tracking, council and commission staff engagement. So these are just the things that will be considered as we develop the IMSA or the MOU and the IMSA. The IMSA itself will have the costing structure and the funding formula, the reporting structure, the dispatch and the employment of the utility director, updates to billing software, procurement, managing easements, insurance, occupational health and safety measures, UARB studies. So this will be the holistic view of what is required, and we'll find the gaps and fill it in as we go along with this project. that will be done through the process mapping that will be starting relatively soon. And this will be the methodical examination of each of these MEUs to see how everyone does each step that they do in order to run the operation. So what does it look like from meter reading to billing? What does it look like from a call out in the community from start to finish? How is it reported? How is it handled? What does the occupational health and safety protocols look like in each of these organizations? Are they the same? Should they be, can they be, does someone do something better than someone else that could be plucked and administered? So there's a holistic approach and review of each organization to cherry pick the best and to dispatch those low hanging fruit from there to make sure that everyone's operating in a similar fashion that is cost effective and efficient. Any questions about the process? Okay. So there will be regular project reporting. This is one of these situations where I'm giving you an update, and you will be seeing me again in December and January, and you'll just keep seeing me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you. So the budget is still intact for the project. There are some nuances about the spending and the final reporting, just to make sure that we appropriately allocate all the costs and make sure that we get every dollar out of the MIP funding that we were promised by the province. And so at the close out of the project, that is when we receive the final 50%. So we want to make sure that we get everything done within that timeline so that they are keen to give us every dollar that they committed to. So that will be part of that reporting and budgeting in the end. And that takes me to the end of my presentation. And I appreciate that a lot of the questions have been asked during this. So if you have any more.
Nancy, right, any more?
Any more?
Will your quarterly reports include a financial report, like with numbers that we will see instead of we are doing fine, or will we see numbers?
Sure.
And inventory, has that been done down in, or is that part of the job of this director to have that completed?
Can you go back a couple of slides?
Of course.
One more. Go to the next one. It was about the quarterly meetings and
Oh, was that the reporting?
there. No, next.
This one.
Working group meeting monthly with 2 members of each MEU, which is kind of what we have now with area. Each of the partners has 2 members on the board. So would you coordinate these with area meetings or, regular board meetings, or would they be a separate entity?
So far, these have been separate, and as we've been navigating the report situation, this has changed a tiny bit, but we're going to be getting back into the more regular flow of that once we have the report situation figured out. So we can talk about that in close.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Perry.
This is tied into Councillor Wilson's earlier question about the org chart. It was a question I wrote down before we came to the meeting, and I realized I still don't quite get it. So we're going to have this new position, the utility director, who's going to be kind of functionally within area, but the role is really for these 3 units. I still don't get how that works, the accountability. So who is the utility director accountable to organizationally?
Well, at this point, I think it's Aaron when they're within the area structure, but there will be the group of CAOs and the chair of the report that they will be in communication with and reporting to about the progress of the project and the progress of their work within the MEUs. So they're a long-term person who.
Here's what I found.
What did you find?
What did I find?
What's the answer?
They'll be here in the long term, and so that's the work of KVRS, is to discover what would be the best governance structure.
Okay, so that will be then developed through the governance structure development.
One thing I would add there is the situation we want to avoid is where there's a resource hired either by area and handed out to electric utilities or a third on each payroll, and then each town tries to do the tragedy of the commons.
Yeah.
and capture more for their fixed cost, right? So what area has done successfully over its inception is we come together and we say, what are all of our priorities? What are the objectives? What do we have in common? And so that each town is aware of why and what that director is doing in the other towns. It is not going to be 1/3 of every week or 1/3 of every day, someone's punching a clock and tracking it. But over a period of time, it will be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And if there are significant capital projects, then that budget will include a dedicated project manager for that. These are things that we're talking like conceptually. To Meg's point, there's a bit of governance work and some conversations on this. We're not coming in with a definitive answer on this, not because we're not thinking about it, but I just think it's premature to have a defined recommendation on this. I'm happy to have feedback on governance. I think there's a lot of experience around council tables and some things that they have experienced in their lives. Happy to have that feed into this. And as Meg mentioned, the recruiting firm that we have hired has a governance resource to assist that as well. So we're on a journey. The ultimate decision on that doesn't affect the need for there to be this quality management resource in a collaborative and shared arrangement.
So what's this thing called? I mean, other than an IMSA, or, but what's it gonna be called, this whole project over, or in,
What's her name?
Well, right now it's the MEU modernization project.
and, okay, that's.
Sounds
Another
appro-
acronym for us to.
Yeah, it sounds appropriately public sector.
A really, really engaging term, so the whole thing's gonna need a lot of really communication. So that nobody's feeling that other people are getting more of the pie. Yeah, so areas and us, we're all getting really good at building the plane as we fly.
Councillor Wilson and Councillor Longstreth.
Yeah, I just, some more comment than anything, and that is that, I put my feeling hat back on. One of his concerns is that we, as a council, and in fact, as a board, in some respects, have been insulated from what's going on in the actual utility, and particularly to a lesser degree our utility, but certainly the board has been basically a black box that we can't see into. And I would encourage you to encourage whoever is going to be doing this governance piece, that we don't need another layer of miscommunication. We need to get that as seamless as we can get it. And that structure needs to reflect that need.
Okay. Councillor Longstreth, thank you, Councillor Wilson.
This utility director is for all of the utilities, though, not just Riverport, am I correct?
It's for the 3 in the project.
Okay, so the loan, so what will that director do for us for the town of Mahone Bay?
So there will be the long-term management of the utility, the direction provided for the PLTs, the direction for asset management and capital projects, long-term forecasting for whatever UARB studies are required.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is difficult
what you're
right now,
doing?
because
Yeah.
right now, in the project period, what they'll do is they'll focus on a fairly defined set of responsibilities, including obviously figuring out all of these things,
Right.
working with Meg, but then also meeting some regulatory requirements that we have coming out of the board's last decision. You know, there are some very specific objectives. In that way, it'll only be after the decision's made at the end of the project term in June that we will really be able to understand what our organization will be able to transfer from myself and Phil, who are doing all the day-to-day right now,
Right.
to this person. Like, that's not gonna really pay off in that sense big until after June, because the point of the project is to find the efficiencies. It may be that a new structure like a commission will enable this person to perform a tremendous amount of the work that Mahone Bay was previously doing on our behalf. But it may be that at a minimum, we'll get a third of a person's worth. So we could think of it as, that many hours. I think we could get more than the benefit of a third of a person out of this person through efficiencies, if that's explicable. But at a minimum, I do put time in. Phil does work that takes him away from the
And
day to day.
Ashley
And
does.
well, Ashley's job will probably remain pretty much unchanged as far as that. But those are all the big questions for the next 6 months for Meg and the new hire.
Counselor now.
Yeah, getting back to the Riverport then, so you're saying this utility manager is gonna be amongst the 3 member utilities. Where does Riverport fit into that? What role will they have in Riverport, or will they have a role?
You answer that? You want me to answer that?
Yeah, I feel like if you would answer that, I'm not sure where the line is about what should be in session and.
I think it's suitable for an open session to say that each of these electric utilities is a business. And they each need a dedicated manager to that business. And so what this utility director will do in Mahone Bay will be the same as what they do in Berwick and the same as what they do in Riverport at a macro level. They each have their own idiosyncrasies, which will require that manager's attention. But the basket of responsibility to each of those owners is the same. So all the things that Dylan just mentioned, Riverport does not have that.
And that's another question I think maybe it should go in camera one. That's not it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Back to you.
That's it for me, that's the end.
Okay. Easy wrap up.
Nothing else here for the open session,
We're done?
Your
Okay.
worship. Delighted to again have an audience with your community. Thank you for granting that.
How many people do we have at home watching?
7.
7. Has anyone offered a question?
One question from Tony Sampson. The storm plan we have been shown is a good start to stop continuing damage on our property, but the damage we have already suffered needs to be fixed. Is there a plan for this?
Is that inappropriate for,
Can I jump in? I think Tony won't be surprised to hear that it's not a question we can answer through this format, but we are absolutely continuing that dialogue with him, and we will be getting in touch with him in that regard too.
okay. Thank you, CAO.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So question.
Okay. Well, with that, we have concluded our open agenda portion. I'd like to thank the citizens at home who have chosen to spend some time with us on this lovely Friday morning, anticipating the weather to come on the weekend, so be careful with that. And with that, we would entertain a motion to go in camera.
So moved.
Seconder? All in favor?
To discuss.
You're right, to discuss the MGA 22-2E contract negotiations. Thank you, Councillor Carver, for keeping us on that track.